Back with part two of the Pro Football Doc. I don't know about you guys, but I had fun talking to the Last Dance doc himself, my former attending professor. And he actually broke some news, right? He said, probably not food poisoning that big game, maybe altitude sickness. In any case, Michael always overcomes. And he told some good Michael Jordan stories, MJ stories as well. So we appreciate Dr. Heffron there. On to Pro Football Doc Podcast Part 2. Look, the COVID weirdness continues. Look, I hope COVID just leaves and gets behind us, but the weirdness really continues here as much as we want to maybe move on. And here's what I mean. I don't know if you guys saw this, but this was
just spectacular to see. Tomorrow will be fun, folks. Again, 2:30 special start time tomorrow, live tomorrow. Jack, look forward to sharing it once again with you the final round here on CBS.
Thank you, Jim.
What's going on here? Somebody just gave John some news. This is not good.
So bottom line is that was John Rahm.
We have no idea.
Six strokes clear of, let me pause this here.
So it's just spectacular to see.
6 strokes clear of the lead at the Memorial going into the final day as he comes off round 3, is pulled off the course and said he tested positive for COVID and he's done. And I think it was a $1.6 million prize. That certainly isn't unheard of. It was contact tracing, and then he had to do daily testing. And apparently if he had a vaccine, maybe he wouldn't need it. I'm not trying to get into the controversy of the vaccine, et cetera. I've taken the vaccine. I do encourage people to take it, but I'm not being critical. But that's just more COVID weirdness in terms of things that continue. I'll give you something else that I thought was COVID weirdness. How about this? The Raiders' new stadium, Allegiant Stadium, has yet to host an NFL or Raiders fan, but the first fans allowed inside will be WWE fans for SummerSlam. Now, admittedly, a preseason game will have been played, but not regular season game. So I think, who would have thought that Las Vegas would build this multi-billion-dollar stadium? The NFL would finally go there, and the first, quote, real sports with, fans is indeed WWE. So look, WWE's blown up, right? They're on Fox everywhere. And I've worked with the WWE as a physician before. And as they say, it is scripted, not fake. So what they're doing is real. It is scripted, but it's real in terms of their athleticism. But I just find it interesting that the WWE gets to open up, quote, a sporting event with a packed house before an NFL regular season game there. In addition to more COVID weirdness, there's been lots of talk of who is or isn't vaccinated and players not answering. I think it's their right not to answer, but I think it will become clear who is and isn't based on the rules of when you see people around, because the rules are set up. It's going to be very clear if you're an assistant coach and you're not vaccinated. You won't be allowed on the sidelines. You won't be allowed at practice with the tier 1 team and players. And of course, the different mask regulations. So the NFL weirdness and the COVID weirdness, unfortunately, will continue here. Next topic, Toradol. The quote, pain-killing injection. First of all, what is Toradol? Toradol is an anti-inflammatory, admittedly a strong anti-inflammatory with pain-killing properties. Advil, ibuprofen has pain-killing properties. But the NFL and the NFLPA, at least, for over a decade now, they're at it again. They want to get rid of Toradol. The NFLPA has been trying to get players to decrease Toradol usage for over a decade, still a popular choice of the players. I'm not sure why this tweet was deleted, but it has to do with the PA saying, and the PA/NFL group of doctors saying, try to use less Toradol. Don't use injectable Toradol. Use the oral or nasal form of Toradol. It's just as effective. So if it's just as effective orally and nasally versus a shot, and there's no data to show that the shot is more powerful, and there's no data to show that the shot has more side effects, why is it okay to do orally or through nasal mist, but not okay with the injection? Now, to me, that's perception of pain-killing injections, etc. I don't know. I don't know what the motive is to bring this up again. It's been out there for over a decade to decrease the use of Toradol. When I was in the NFL, our medical physician did a study on the safety of Toradol, and we deemed that it was safe for episodic usage. Toradol is okay for 20 doses. You can't take it chronically, 4 times a day for 5 days. And so we decided that we would limit it to once a week for no more than 20 weeks, right? So it's not 4 times in one day for 5 days. And then again and again, it's just on game day. And we refused to give it to players for practice or throughout the week to play or to practice. And that was our safety measure. And we studied that and didn't find anything harmful. So I don't know. It's just interesting that the Toradol controversy still exists. It is not a narcotic. Look, and the other thing is, it is a misnomer. It is not fact that players are given lots of pain medicine or narcotics to play. You can't play the game of football and think and react that quickly if you're on a lot of pain medicine. So this is why they like the Toradol. It doesn't slow your thinking process down or your reaction time down. That helps with pain, perhaps during the game, but most would say after the game in terms of post-game soreness there. All right, let's try and go through the NFL rundown a little bit here. Thankfully, we're not that busy in terms of NFL news, which is a good thing because we don't want to be too busy. Want to give some kudos here to Weston Richburg, that he's retiring, and he's been through a lot. He had the patella tendon issue in 2019 and then missed all of 2020 with the hip scope. And 2 years out of the NFL and his age, he was likely done, and good to see him retired and move on to a new chapter in life. And congratulations to him. Next up, there was lots of Joe Burrow talk because he's been at OTAs and been seen throwing and moving around some. And I did look at the video, and right now I'm probably a favorite of Cincinnati Bengals fans because so far, not trying to count your chickens before they hatch, we've been right. We've put out video from the get-go that despite ACL, MCL, and patella subluxation issues, I expected Joey Burrow to be ready to go week 1. And his current video seems to think that as well, heads in that direction. And so Bengals fans, just remember this when I'm wrong one time in the future. Patrick Mahomes says if there was a game, he'd be able to play. I don't doubt him. That doesn't mean that he's not 100% from his turf toe surgery. Remember, he had the turf toe and was limited, yet played in the playoffs and in the Super Bowl. So I don't doubt him, and I think it's smart never to doubt Patrick Mahomes at all. Otherwise, here we have NBA rundown of injuries, and we covered some of them with our Last Dance doctor, Joel Embiid. Look, meniscus tear, Dr. Heffernan talked about overread. I hope it's an overread. Embiid played well in his first game back, 39 points game one, but his 76ers lost. Look, you saw him grabbing at his knee some. I hope he's okay, but there's no way Embiid is 100%. And it makes sense because in basketball, you have to play both ways, right? You have to play offense and defense. And if you're less than 100%, you usually end up concentrating on the offensive side and, saving your energy and being careful on the defensive side. The defensive side is also more vulnerable to knee injury, especially meniscus tear. Quick cutting, twisting movements, reacting to an offensive player is harder than taking a shot or dribbling the ball to a basket or pulling up when you want to because you're in control. You've heard me say it a lot. It's easier for a running back to come back from an ACL tear than a cornerback who has to react instantaneously to a route or to the ball in the air. Same for Embiid playing defense. It's harder to play defense than offense. Had a great game. I hope it continues. I hope he's safe. I hope the tear doesn't get worse. But he put up 39 points, but his team also put up or allowed 100 and almost 30, 120, high 20s, and lost in a very high scoring match in game one. Hopefully that will improve for them. Luka Doncic did his best to survive that cervical radiculopathy, but is knocked out in game 7 against the Clippers. No fault of Luka's. He played better than I thought with that neck and nerve issue. Interesting to see now what he does, whether they calm it down, whether it's injections, or whether perhaps he has a cervical disc surgery just to put it behind him before the regular season. CP3 continues to play through with his shoulder issue, whether it's stinger or subluxation. I still think subluxation, but we don't need to get into that. The bottom line is that he was better off than Anthony Davis, as we said. And then finally, James Harden, he already ruled out for game 2. Game 1, within the first minute, pulled up with his hamstring strain. It's listed as just tightness. Let's hope so. But let me tell you, he missed 5 weeks, 22 games with the hamstring. He's re-aggravated it. I hope it's just tightness, but I think it's more than tightness, probably a mild strain. I don't know how long he's going to be out, but I would put the over-under at about 2 weeks. So that means his Nets, who won game 1, might have to survive this Bucks series without him. We'll see. But over-under on his return, I would place at 2 weeks as a guesstimate. All right, so that's basketball here. And let's move on to our next segment here as we continue with the Pro Football Doc podcast. And breaking news, Juwan James, he had just filed a $15 million grievance hinting at collusion between the league and the team. And then what? He turned around and signed a contract, 2-year deal for $9 million with the Baltimore Ravens. I've said all along that he's unlikely to play this year, but I don't think that's a bad stash pick. This is the old days when you put a guy in injured reserve when he really wasn't injured, right? And just to save the guy for the future. Look, Juwan James, I still don't believe he's going to play this year. And I think Adam Schefter tweeted to that effect. So basically now they have some depth, which is either late season or for next season, $9 million over 2 years, or you could say $9 million to play next year. That kind of mitigates his damage from the Broncos, lets the Broncos off any potential hook. Good to see for the guy. I mean, he's still valued, obviously, by the Ravens. He's going to get $9 million for the next 2 years, probably miss all of this year, but that hopefully puts an end and mitigates some of that controversy when he potentially lost that $15 million working out away from the facility there and determined to be non-football injury. So good for Juwan James. And I think it's a good deal for the Ravens as well. So congrats to both of them. But that's really a stash signing for the future. All right, so let's move on to what happened here, go through a couple videos here, and a couple guys getting destroyed here. Oh, before we do that, let me give a shout out to my guy here, Steve Antonopoulos, Greek. He calls himself that, all right? Greek. And that's what everyone calls him. He calls himself that. He says, call me Greek. 45 seasons with the Denver Broncos, finally retiring. Look, he really is great, and congratulations. That's tremendous longevity. Look, he's one of the tops in the league. Uh, Ronnie Barnes with the Giants has that kind of seniority. The only other one was Fred Zamberletti of the Minnesota Vikings, someone that I had the fortune of working with / under when I was young, when I was a young guy with the Vikings in 1994, 94, 95. And Fred was already the dean then. When Fred retired, he was the only athletic trainer, and he the only athletic trainer the Minnesota Vikings had ever had to that point in time. And in an unprecedented move, the Vikings put him in the Ring of Honor. And so maybe Greek will get that same honor as well from in Mile High there with the Broncos. And Fred was also ahead of his time because he was a physical therapist and athletic trainer. And that's sort of the norm now for everybody. So kudos to Greek, my friend. Best of luck in your retirement and your next chapter. He was with the Broncos for all 8 of their Super Bowls. So I think he should be in their Ring of Honor. Congrats to Greek there. Now let's move on to what happened here and a couple of videos here. The first video we'll look at here is a pretty brutal hit. Montreal Canadiens chasing down a puck and gets destroyed. He went to the hospital. He obviously had a concussion. Thankfully, he did not stay in the hospital and was cleared to leave that day. He absolutely gets destroyed. I'm not going to go into illegal play. That's for the hockey pundits to talk about. But I said at the time that I hoping, expecting him to be okay, even though he gets destroyed. I mean, this is getting hit by a truck. And I think what he has going for him is that he didn't see it coming. And he goes completely limp, which is why he really gets blown up, but actually helps save serious injury because there's no resistance. He just goes flying. And that's why I think he saves himself from more serious injury. And I'll give you another example here. If you're faint of heart, this is the craziest injury or fall that I have ever seen at a sporting event. So avert your eyes if you don't want to see this. And I was there. I was the X Games head team physician, X Games, quote, chief medical officer for 19, almost 20 years. I was there in Staples Center for this. And now that you've been warned, watch out. This video is unbelievable. But I'll tell you why I'm showing it after it's done. Avert your eyes if you don't want to see something spectacular. It is a little bit gruesome, but let me give you the ending. He's okay, so that you don't have to have your stomach turned.
In 2007, Jake Brown stood at the top of the ramp trying to pull off the first 720 over the Big Air Gap.
What do you think we can expect with Jake? And now he's going for the 720 to a big 540. 720. Oh, he's gone!
But it came at a heavy price.
Oh man, that was the heaviest slam we've ever seen. That's the worst spot he could have felt those wobbles.
Look at this. He turns his body and he says, "I'm all right," and takes it. His shoes. Did you see that?
Are you kidding?
That was Tony Hawk on the commentary and Sal Masekela.
Unbelievable.
So anyways, yeah, that's pretty unbelievable right there. And let me tell you why, and we can go look at it again if you want. He actually walked away from that as he saw. And yes, his neck was checked out and his back and everything else. So let's go over why I think he was able to, quote, walk away from that. Here, going to the wrong thing here. So let's I don't know how to get it to the spot there. But in any case, you never want to land flat bottom. The transition makes you safe. He landed flat bottom because he had so much speed doing that 720 that he got kicked out. But watch what happens to Jake Brown as he comes down. He turns and he goes limp. As he goes limp, his feet, his shoes get blown off, and then his legs, then his hip, then his back, and then his upper back, then his head hit. So it sort of dissipates the fall. Look, if you would have told me in real time, is he alive or dead after that, I would have said dead. But he actually got up and walked away. Let me tell you, Staples Center, I've never heard a sporting event. You know, you hear like pin drop quiet. That's what it was. And after tending to him, he actually, quote, walked away with relatively minimal injury. He returned to make an appearance at the X Games after a little bit in the hospital there in the ICU. Fantastic. But my point is this: if Jake Brown stiffens up, he would have had a shattered femur, shattered ankle, broken back, etc. Because he went ragdoll, and that's what the Canadians hockey player did, was ragdoll. He actually walks away. Look, how often do you hear a story, unfortunate story, and hopefully we never hear of this again, that there's a drunk driver accident and people die and the drunk driver walks away, didn't even have a seatbelt on, ragdolls around everywhere, but bumped, bruises, sore, but walks away. So there is something to that of absorbing the energy of the blow as opposed to taking it on. It looks worse as you absorb it, but many times the results are better. For example, in this hockey injury and this X game injury. So, all right, thanks for watching Pro Football Doc Podcast, Part 1 and Part 2. Thanks to the Last Dance doctor again, Dr. Heffron. And thanks for his training me over time, and hope you enjoyed this episode. Follow on YouTube to always get updates, and subscribe, and as well as Apple and all the usual places. Thanks for watching and listening.